Bonjour, Kkendasot Mattena, Potawatomi and Dao, Mangin Dodem, Payu Aki and Dochpia. Hello, I'm Kkendasot Mattena, and I am Program Associate for the Association on American Indian Affairs. And I am honored to be here with Lilly Holland, who I've had the privilege of working with to facilitate a private return of her grandmother's collection. Lilly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Kay. My name is Lilly Holland. I live in Boston and I've been working with the association to return my grandmother's collection, which was located in Idaho. For having me, Kay. My name is Lilly Holland. I live in Boston and I've been working with the association to return my grandmother's collection, which was located in Idaho.
Thank you, Lily. So my first question for you, and one of the very first conversations we ever had, was about the story of your grandmother's life and how she came to accumulate these belongings, these cultural items, over her life. And then upon her death, the questions or concerns and these challenges that your family then faced when having to navigate the care for this collection and the estate overall. So tell me a little bit about that story.
Sure. So, my grandmother lived in Sun Valley, Idaho. That was primarily where she spent most of her time. And she was a collector of all kinds of things. She collected Beanie Babies, she collected water bottles, she collected really anything you can name, she collected. And she really loved art. So she had a huge art collection. And one of the collections that she had was a collection of cultural items, Native American cultural items. Um, and this was almost like a museum she had set up in her house. Her dining room was decorated with things hanging on the wall, items were on shelves around, art was hung up. It was a really special collection to her. I believe some of it she received from art dealers, some of it she got in her travels around the country, and some of it at art galleries. But it was a really extensive collection of cultural items. So after she passed, we had many types of collections to figure out what to do with. Some things people wanted to have in the family, some things were sold, some things were donated. And as we started to kind of sort through all of this, it became clear that this was going to be the most complex collection to place. I happened to be out there in February, so she passed in January. And while I was out there in February helping my mom to sort through some of the items and my uncle, um, we started taking a look through her files and trying to figure out, what is this collection made of? Where did these cultural items come from? And she had done I think she had had like a appraisal or something done a few years ago. So we had some information about some of the items, but it was really kind of pieced together. And it became clear pretty quickly that most of these items were historic. They were likely looted, genocidal cultural items, and not contemporary art. So it became very clear to us that it was time to repatriate them and return them to whoever they belonged to, which was not an easy task. So we didn't really have a lot of information about how to go about doing this. I had heard about NAGPRA before, so I started Googling and reading about that and knew that that applied to kind of larger organizations and museums, but was wondering if that would kind of provide a sort of blueprint for my family to know what to do and kind of how to begin. And in reading an article about NAGPRA, I saw Shannon quoted in the association, which led me to their website and a lot of emailing back and forth. And then eventually was connected in, and the association said that they could help us, which was wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, Lily. And yeah, ever since you and I have been working on getting these belongings returned to Native nations, and it's been a long process, but it's happening. We're seeing some of these belongings making their way home, the majority of which have Native nations that are just waiting to figure out the final pieces to get them back home. So the impact is definitely being felt across Native country. Um, and so with that, the other thing I wanted to ask you that feels particularly pertinent for our members is What have you learned from this process? And what knowledge would you like to teach others who may be facing a similar journey to return? As we've talked about, and I'm sure many of our viewers know, estates can be difficult when someone, especially someone we love, passes. Having to navigate these very complex issues that you had no knowledge of before. So, what kind of knowledge would you like to pass on to our members who are watching today?
Think there's like a few different buckets of knowledge, and I feel like every time you and I speak, I'm learning more and learning what I still don't know. I think one of the biggest challenges, probably like initially and still ongoing, is kind of that timing piece with grief and closure. And, we want to say goodbye to my grandmother and kind of feel like we've wrapped up her estate and that everything, all of the kind of to-do list items are done. However, this is an incredibly thoughtful and considerate process, and it's not something that can be rushed. And I think balancing that so that it feels like we're able to kind of move on emotionally and like put that chapter where it needs to be, but also understanding that like to do a process like this well, you need time and you need to go slowly and you need to be thoughtful and considerate. Um, so that's definitely been one thing I learned is kind of how to balance those two things together. There's been a lot of um, learning just around language. So every time, Kay, that you and I talk, I feel like I learn something new that I either didn't know I was doing or that I could be doing different, saying differently. Early on, I think I was continually referring to my grandmother's collection as art, and I kept calling it art. And you gently reminded me that a lot of these items aren't art, they're cultural belongings, cultural items. And even just now and talking about it again, you helped me kind of refine my language. And even in one email exchange that my mom was on, she called me after and she said, "Oh, Kay phrased something like, I'm so excited these items are ready to return." And she was like, I didn't think about that word return. I kept saying, send it, whatever. But language has so much power. And saying return really shares, the story of how these items need to come back to who they belong to. And that's been just ongoing, that learning. Um, I think for anyone who's gone through the American school system, a huge challenge is that we've been taught a lot of myths and harmful things about our land, our history, the history of colonization. And I think there's an incredible amount of unlearning that we need to do and relearning the truth. And that sometimes comes in the form of like, I've learned something that maybe my parents didn't have the opportunity to learn yet. So there's generations teaching each other. Um, as a teacher, engaging in these topics with my students has helped me to feel like I'm continually learning and getting more information. But I think knowing that you don't know and then being open to learning is really one of the most important things. And then just the like having a collection such as this, I think a lot of people, myself included, my family included, feel a lot of guilt. And I think not allowing that guilt to cause you to not take action and not do the right thing. So, I think the instinct is to say, well, my grandmother didn't know and she didn't steal it and the person she bought it from didn't steal it, but not allowing that to be a justification for not doing anything and kind of know better, do better, and figure out the missing pieces. And then once you do, trust the individuals who are telling you what is the right thing to do with these belongings, with these items, and try to let go of that maybe defensiveness, either for your family members, your ancestors, people who have willingly or unwillingly participated in this. It's kind of needing to let that go and not allowing that to let you not do the right thing. I don't know if
That's
that makes
perfect.
sense.
That's
Okay.
such a great statement, I think, to end our interview on. and to leave our viewers and our members with. This story of return is not an isolated case. The association is currently working on a few other returns as well. Um, and we hope by getting stories like yours and your families out, and the stories of the Native nations who now get to bring these belongings home, these ancestors home, to heal and also to reclaim knowledge that those belongings carry with them as well is such a profound impact. And I've heard time and time again how grateful Native Nation representatives have been to be a part of this process. So I want to,
And likewise, my family just wants to thank you because this has been an immense amount of labor on your end and knitting together different pieces and hatched stories and, just an amazing, amazing amount of work that we never would have known how to take on. So we can't thank the association enough for partnering with us to do this.
oh, that's so good to hear. And thank you so much again, Lily, for joining me today.